Hi, this is Carol. Now, before we start, you might like to have a good wiggle and make yourself very comfortable. And then before you find out how Sammy the fox got so brave, you might like to close your eyes so you can concentrate better. And you might even want to open them up again once or twice till they get really comfortable. And then you could just let them stay shut so that your eyes can have a really good rest too while you're listening. And when you're ready right now, you can just take a moment to find out how still you can let those arms be and how still you can let those hands be. And you can make them maybe as still as a statue. Wouldn't that be good? That's right. So just pretending now that your arms are the arms of a statue and your hands are the hands of a statue. A lovely big stone statue with so much beautiful, friendly, smiling face. So much stillness as you look at that beautiful statue, smiling ever so nicely, ever so still. And how still do you think you could let your legs be? And your feet? That's it. So just pretend that those legs are the legs of that statue. Ever so still. And you could move around a little bit now and then if you need to, even while you're letting your body get stiller and stiller, as still as that statue, all nice and heavy and comfortable, so that your body can just quietly go off to sleep, all relaxed and sleepy. And in your mind, you can go off on a journey all the way to perhaps a beautiful great green forest where little fox Sammy lives, just like the start of a magical dream. So let's begin this story now. Now, once upon a time in a faraway land, in the heart of a forest, ever so deep, under a tree all cosy and snug, a family of foxes was all curled up fast asleep. There was Mummy Fox, Daddy Fox, Big Sister Sally, Big Brother Tommy and Little Fox Sammy. And as Sammy slept in his little fox room, he breathed in and out through his little fox nose, resting his head on his little fox paws and just enjoying the rest of his little fox dreams. And you know what it's like when you just drift off to sleep, when you're having a really nice rest, and then you start having a wonderful dream. And little fox Sammy was dreaming. He was dreaming of running through the valley, dreaming of playing by that beautiful river, dreaming of sniffing his way through the forest, this tree and that tree, exploring the world outside his dreams, in his dreams. And in the real world, outside of his dreams, there was only one day left till school started. For Sammy was about to go to fox school for the very first time. Now, Sammy really didn't like the idea of going to fox school because, you see, little fox Sammy could remember back when he used to be a tiny little fox Sammy. Oh, ages ago. And it was before he'd ever had any sleepovers or spent any time with his grandparents, maybe his Poppy and his Nana, or perhaps he called them by other names, Grandma and Papa, or perhaps Nanny and Pops, or Mama, because children have lots of different names for their grandparents. And so he had not had any time away from his mum and dad, and he'd never been to big school. He never had a holiday away from them. So he was a little bit nervous. And he was remembering when he was just a tiny, tiny little fox ages ago, just watching big sister Sally and big brother Tommy getting ready for their first day at fox school, putting on their fox school uniforms and their orange caps on their heads, packing their fox school bags. And they were both rather excited and, yes, a little bit scared about leaving Mummy and Daddy Fox for the very first time, because, it's quite an adventure when you start to grow up from being like a little fox to a bigger fox. And to be able to go on those adventures, you have to be brave to start with. So big sister Sally and big brother Tommy, in spite of being a bit worried, were also full of excitement. And when they got home from fox school at the end of their very first day, they told tiny Sammy Fox all about the games they played and all the friends that they made. And as they went on going to school every day, they learned that actually they were really very safe and they could feel quite happy about it. And they could know that it's okay to be away at school. And so they told tiny fox Sammy that he would really enjoy it when he was old enough. And now the time had come, and little fox Sammy was old enough at last. And in the morning, he would be starting fox school. His fox school uniform was already there beside his bed. His fox school cap and fox school bag were waiting for him. But a little part of him was still a little bit scared, because he didn't know if he was brave enough to go on an adventure yet without his mum and dad there beside him. And a little part of him wished that he could just stay at home and play games with maybe his Super Fox doll with his mum and dad close by. And that night, as Sammy just lay sleeping and dreaming of running through bright green fields, or of splashing about in a pond, or riding on Dad's back as they just crossed over a river, hunting for treasures together, dreaming of so many wonderful things, little did Sammy know that he was about to get a visit from that dream fairy. And I don't know if you already know about this dream fairy, but she's rather special. She's a special kind of fairy because she can tell when you're worried about things. And that's when she just floats into your dreams in the middle of the night, so that she can give you a special magical dream that can really help you. And nobody knows what the dream fairy looks like. Some say she's got wings of golden light, and some say that her dress is pure and white. Some say that her eyes are kind and true. Some say that her face is beautiful too. But everybody says, and everybody knows, that the dreams she gives you while you're having a doze will give you the power you need to be strong, with magic as deep as time is long. And just right then, at that very moment, little fox Sammy began to have his very own magical dream. And he saw a golden white fairy, a dream fairy, the dream fairy herself, floating along beside him in his dreams, just whispering in his ear, in the sweetest little voice that he had ever heard, "Little fox Sammy, look up there." And Sammy looked up, and above his head there was a flock of birds just darting about, flapping their wings, twittering and chattering. Robins and blackbirds, bluebells, sparrows, thrushes, magpies, starlings, finches, swallows, and all kinds of birds, just about every kind of bird you can think of, maybe magpies and eagles, and little tiny birds that he didn't even know what they were called. All those birds were all just flying about, as if they were dancing in the air. And as Sammy gazed at the birds in wonder, the dream fairy said, "Did you know all little baby birds are scared to fly at first? But every little bird is meant to grow up and fly with their friends up there in the sky, because otherwise there'd be no birds up there in the sky." And then the dream fairy snapped her fingers. And in a flash, all the birds just swooped down to the ground. And they hid in the grass and the bushes, and the sky was empty of birds, completely silent. And then the dream fairy snapped her fingers again. And at once the birds flew out of the bushes and right back up into the air again, tweeting and chirping and whistling and chattering in excitement, circling above Semi's head until he got quite dizzy looking at them. And the dream fairy said, "Wouldn't you like to know how those little birds get so brave enough to flap their wings and fly? Just listen carefully," she said. "And in a moment I'll tell you their secret. You see, it's the secret of learning to fly, and it's the secret of learning to be brave, and it's the secret of becoming a big fox, so that you can feel safe and happy at fox school, or when you're going for a visit to your grandparents' house, or when your mum or your dad have to go to work and you're left with one of the other parents, or with a babysitter, or with one of your grandparents, or more than that, so you can feel safe and happy. And you can feel safe and happy playing with your friends, having all kinds of new adventures. As you listen closely, Semi. Are you listening, Semi?" she said. Now Semi felt very excited and happy as that dream fairy just floated along beside him, because he was about to learn a really important secret. So he nodded his head to show that he was really listening and paying attention. And the dream fairy said, "Think of your hero, Super Fox." Now straight away little Fox Semi thought of his hero, Super Fox. And as if by magic, Super Fox appeared right there beside him, with his red cape flying up behind him, and just bowed to that dream fairy to show his respect. And the dream fairy smiled and went on. "Now you know how brave and clever Super Fox is, don't you?" And again Semi energetically nodded his head, because he certainly did know that. Super Fox never lets anybody beat him. Well then, all you need to do is imagine what Super Fox would do if he had to do something a little bit scary. What do you think Super Fox would do? Now little Fox Semi looked sideways at Super Fox, and he saw him standing up straight and tall, shoulders back, chest out, looking straight ahead, with such a determined look in his eyes. Nothing was going to stop Super Fox. Nothing would stop him. That was pretty clear. "That's good," said the dream fairy. "Now just imagine that you are Super Fox. Super Fox who never lets anything beat him. Super Fox who can fly. Super Fox who is brave and strong. Can you imagine that?" And again, Semi's little head went up and down. And you can imagine being Super Fox. And so when you do that, really imagine, you'll become braver yourself. And Semi began to have the funniest feeling, as if he was just sliding sideways right into Super Fox, right inside him. And he looked out through Super Fox's eyes, and he was feeling just like Super Fox, standing straight and tall and determined. Nothing was going to beat him. And the dream fairy's voice went on whispering in his ears. "Remember this, Semi. Imagine what your hero would do. And then imagine that you are your hero. Imagine you're him." And in his dream, Semi began to feel like he was flying and floating through the forest, happy and strong, as brave as he could be, adventuring through the trees with the birds, with a big fox smile on his face. And when Semi woke up the very next morning after his magical dream, he opened his little eyes wide and instantly thought of Super Fox, and he jumped out of bed and put on his fox school cap and picked up his fox school bag. and said to Mum and Dad Fox, "Okay, I'm ready for school." And Mummy Fox and Daddy Fox smiled really proudly, so proud at him, as he just marched off to his very first day of Fox School, walking along just like Super Fox, brave and strong, with the birds flying overhead. And when little Sammy came home from school, he gave his parents this really excited big smile. He had stories to tell of the games that he'd played, and stories to tell of the friends that he'd made, stories to tell of the lessons he'd learned, stories to tell of the badges he'd earned. And that was the tale of how little Fox Sammy became so very, very strong and brave. And do you know what? They don't call him Little Fox Sammy anymore, because now he's Big Fox Sammy. And that's the end of that story. And so, everybody starts out just like Little Fox Sammy, without knowing what's out there ahead of them. And sometimes we can use our own imagination to take us back, to find out where some of those funny feelings can come from. If we've been worried about leaving our mum or our dad, going and visiting with other friends, having sleepovers, or visiting our grandparents, or going to school, our mind can play tricks on us sometimes. And so what I want you to do now is just imagine that you could gently go back to some of the earliest memories of your existence, those early days and weeks and months just after you were born. Now, if you can't imagine it, or if you can't remember it, you can use your amazing imagination, because I'm sure you've seen a photo of what you looked like when you were just very little. So get a sense of being there after you're born. And when you just have that wonderful sense of being alive and living. And I want you to really remember that feeling of maybe being held in the arms of your mum or the person that's caring for you in those early months. And just get a sense of how that felt so strong and warm and comforting. How you could feel that love coming from your mum or the person that was caring for you. Knowing that those people, they love you. And those arms that conveyed to you that feeling of being held snug and safe and secure, tightly held against that warm body of your mum. Feeling that rise and fall of mum's chest as she was breathing, like the rhythm of a wonderful expanse of ocean, just constantly and steadily just flowing in and out. Always there and just being. And you would have heard the sound of her heartbeat. And again, it's just like the rhythm of breathing, constant and steady. And then there would be times when you would have got that sensation of being rocked gently from side to side. And the rhythm of that rocking would just be soothing and calming and helping you to drift off to sleep at night time. And maybe you're even aware of a smell or a perfume, or the warmth of that nurturing body, and maybe even milk that you would have drunk back in those beautiful early days. How you'd have a yummy drink of milk, whether that was from mum or from a bottle, and you just would feel so full and feeling that you were so loved. That warm, loving feeling of being at peace and safe and well. Now, from those early experiences and memories comes a sense of who we are as people. A sense of well-being and comfort and ease and safety and security. A sense of loving and being loved, and everything in the world being all right. And then everything becomes easier for you. And as you start to just remember some of these earlier feelings again, you can also begin to get a sense of wholeness and wellness and well-being. That's it. And you can move on to those later weeks and months when you begin to explore and discover your own body and your sense of being an individual person. Maybe you discovered that your skin contained your body and that the physical body could move. You could move your arms and your legs, and that body had these sensations of touch and holding, all those wonderful good feelings associated with that. And there was sensation of movement and of reaching out and stretching and then rocking, and the knowledge deep within you that there are boundaries and limits containing yourself, and the separation between yourself and your environment as you touched objects and picked them up in your tiny little hands and then let them drop, and how that gave you a sense of achievement over your external circumstances as you discovered that you are separate from the rest of the world because you are unique and you're different, and you can make things happen just for you in your life. And then you realize that indeed you've got a separate existence from that of your mother and the other people who care for you. Maybe in the beginning this awareness seemed very painful, almost as if you lost a part of yourself, because before it was as though you were bound together before you were born in your mum's tummy, which indeed in a sense you really were in those pre-birth months. But you gradually accepted the reality of this imperfect world and began to discover, to your surprise, a sense of separateness as you learned that you may not ever need that nurturing caregiver, your mum, as much as you thought you did as you grow older. So you discovered your own capabilities and what you could do in this life, so that you could be the master of your own actions, your arms and legs. You discovered that you were growing and moving, and maybe you even had a sense of curiosity and exploration and challenge, so that you could grow in so many ways. And of course, that union with your mum and the people in your family, beautiful as it was, well, if you'd stayed there just like the birds staying in the nest, you would have never been growing and developing and discovering the potential of your own individuality, and instead you would have discovered, well, you would have been limited and you would not have been able to discover the satisfaction of evolving and getting confident and going for sleepovers and staying with your grandparents and all the fun things that you could do had you not stayed at home with mum and dad, because they're the things that you miss out on. And of course, as you grew up, learning all about yourself, this can give you a sense of strength from that original sense of being connected and bonded. So it's a combination of strength and freedom that begins to open up your life as you start to get so much more confident and evolve into the world as you grow up, getting older and stronger. And every time you do something that feels a little bit uncomfortable, what you find is you get more confident as you overcome the problems, because you see you are a very special, unique human being. And what you will realize as you grow is that life is an adventure, so that you can really hardly wait to learn and become your true self. And this will make you feel so good, and you do feel good, to know that you are part of your happy family, but you're also part of your extended family with your grandparents, and you're also a part of your community and your school, and you're a part of this world. So you're joined and connected, but you're also separate and individual as a unique human being with your own mind and will of your own. And as you start to accept that you are growing into this amazing person, what you'll find is all those things that used to worry you just don't happen anymore. because you'll know that no matter what happens, you'll do your best. And you'll know that those people in your life that love you, they'll always come back because they are always connected in your heart. And so, that's the end of our story now. And you can just relax and continue to rest, knowing that you are always safe. Good night.